Okay, people. So it's probably, well, I know it is. It's like December 13th, 2017. It's probably going on like 1 in the morning. So after tomorrow, I'm probably going to be sitting in this spot for 10 to 12 hours a day. Obviously, I'm really, really depressed. Right? I feel like it's I don't know. I'm writing this out by hand, and I'm like, why? What's better, writing it by hand or typing? But I don't know if this is going to help or not. So anyway, as I'm going through this, I'm only on page 20 out of 43, and I'm still on the Pharmacare Protection Act. And I'm on number 15, order in respect to a practitioner. In this section, cause in respect of a practitioner includes, but is not limited to, a determination by the Commission that, as a result of a finding by the appropriate disciplinary body, that a practitioner has inadequate skills or knowledge, or has been guilty of infamous conduct, or repeated instances of serious misconduct, the practitioner is no longer able to provide proper care or treatment to beneficiaries. B. A determination by the Commission that, as a result of conduct giving rise to a conviction of a criminal offense, that practitioner is no longer able to provide proper care or treatment to beneficiaries. C. The submission of a claim by the practitioner to a commission for payment, knowing that 2. The nature or extent of the benefit that was rendered had been misrepresented. Which brings me to say, they gave John a brain scan. And apparently he had white matter in there. Right? And they asked if he had fell. And I said, the only time that I have known John, for me, to fall is when I lived on Ellery Street, and that's when Mark Kane was just a baby. This was before he moved in with me. And he fell as he was walking out my apartment down the walkway. He fell. And I told him, and I said, look, you need to stop taking these pills. Like, if you want to be spending any time around me and the kids, you got to stop taking so many pills, because he would carry them in his pocket and he'd drop them, and I couldn't have him dropping pills in the house, and he fell, and it scared the shit out of me, right? And I said no. So he started to wean himself off all his pills. That's when he started. It took a little while. That would have been in 92, maybe 91, around end of 91, and then by 95 he was drug free, and he never fell from that, except for that one time. However, he had been hit by a car, but through the doctor assessment in those days, he suffered from depression. That's why he had me come back from Alberta, because he was extremely depressed. And I wasn't really that happy out in the boonies, sitting in a snow mound. So it just kind of made sense to go back to Victoria, right? But yeah, no, they gave him a brain scan, people. And towards the end, when this meeting was going on, that any means necessary, he's either going into convalescent care or he's going to his sister. I'm not sure which one, but he's going to one of them, but he's definitely not going back to you. Okay? back to that day, I don't know. There was whisper in the halls that, you know, he fell because somebody phoned my house, said that they were, you know, with the facility that he was at, and they asked me if he had ever fell, and I said, yeah, he fell in 92, and they turned around and twisted it and tried to make it sound like he fell here, and somehow that gave him fucking brain damage. Right? That was their excuse, right? To say he was confused. Right? Even though they gave him a brain scan. They gave him a brain scan. He goes in with a lung infection, because this applies to what I just read. He goes in with a lung infection. People his age, he was 75. People his age, it's not uncommon for them to develop a little bit of delirium from ammonia, right? At that age, which is temporary. And when he went into the hospital, he was laughing, he was joking, he was aware of where he was, he knew why he was there, right? And within 2 days, he was whacked out, kind of droopy and drowsy and dopey. Of course he would be, because they gave him opiates, people. If they wouldn't have gave him opiates, his legs would have seized up and he would have started complaining about his legs. Okay? And nobody caught on, really, that he wasn't complaining about his legs. We didn't clue in that he wasn't complaining about his legs because he was on a high, more than likely on a high dosage of some kind of pain medication, right, to keep him quiet and to figure out what they were going to do with him and figure out where his money was at and figure out how they could get it, basically, right? And because we were being lied to, do you want your calcium pill crushed or whole? Like, again, people are gullible. You go into these environments and you expect the workers to be honorable. And you expect the workers to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth, when in fact that's not what they're doing, people. Because this section that I just read to you right now, that is in an act, which is a law of some kind, right, in the province of British Columbia, Canada, tells you that we've got corrupt doctors working in the system, and there's measures in here to protect the public from them. But unfortunately, the boss that looks after this stuff is not interested in weeding out their weeds. Right? So it just becomes words. This becomes words. It's just, we'll blame it on the BC Liberal government. It's their spin, right? As they begin to privatize the healthcare system, right? So that they can cherry pick and choose who they want to house and who they don't want to house. Who they are going to criminalize while they get to their end goal, basically. Because if it's written right into the act and it acknowledges that there's practitioners out there that are overbilling for the wrong reasons because they're misrepresenting their profession, you know, for an ulterior motive, and then when you call them on it, they want to sit up there and say, oh, no, that's not us. Prove it. Prove it. As you try and figure out this maze of convoluted fucking lies. Lies or misrepresentation. So I just wanted to point that out. Right? They have a cause here for the patient. Now, I'm probably taking these sections and not, I wouldn't, like, because there's more in the middle, right? So I myself may be taking them out of context and in the way they were written and for what, right? But when you look at it from a broader perspective, right? John is the beneficiary, and anybody that treated him within the Surrey Memorial Hospital or this Yale Road Center that was a practitioner or fall under this category, right? So how I'm going to write this in my 5 paragraphs, I don't know. And I don't even know if it's applicable at this point, because they don't want to hear the truth, right? Like, why do you give a brain scan to somebody that you drug? The man was off of drugs for 20 years, people. Right? So if you're going to start giving him hardcore, heavy-duty drugs to shut him up so he doesn't complain about his legs as you figure out how to get his money, right? I'm like, seriously. Because that's pretty much what it was about. Because if he didn't have any money, they would have released him into the community. Right. Anyway, I could go on and on and on and on and on and on. Just to highlight on that, they gave him a brain scan, even though he went in for a lung infection. They knew what type it was. They gave him opiates. And because he was off of drugs for 20 years, he obviously had a severe reaction to those opiates. And based on that reaction, they gave him a brain scan. How do we know that brain scan didn't injure his brain to the point where he lost all his memory? Seriously, people. And not only that, but they also gave him a flu shot after he just got over ammonia. And he had a cold when they gave him the flu shot, because he caught a cold at the Yale Road Center. Because he was rolling around in the wheelchair, biting his nails in between that time. And mind you, the wheelchair didn't even have brakes that worked. And they didn't want to give him a walker when we asked for one. We had to fight for that. And as soon as we started talking about retaining a lawyer, they quickly whisked him out of there as fast as they could. And here I am today. So, do I write that down in the appeal? Oh, Your Honor, I forgot to mention, they were giving him unnecessary tests and charging the taxpayers for those tests just so they could connive and scheme and plot and whatever else that they were doing through their files to where is it? What can I say? Right?